So if you have a goal or a vision, go for it. Like there's no reason to wait. The only way to go is to go. And then you'll see how awesome it is and you'll want to do more of it.
I have certainly been here. Maybe you have too. I was waiting to make the commitment. This interesting thing happens when you don't commit to it, right? You evaluate, you assess. Your fear goes up, your uncertainty goes up, and you just kind of end up dancing with this infinite checklist of adaptations to maybe make the commitment. Everything changes as soon as you make the commitment. Well, good morning or afternoon or evening or wherever you are. I appreciate you tuning into the Living Vision Show today. Got a very special guest here. Eric Nelson is in the house, and he and I we've had a lot of touch points together back and forth. I'm not going to do a long intro because I really think that you're going to want to listen to his story, and his story is a really good depiction of what it looks like to live in your vision. He is certainly a visionary in many ways. Multifamily guy, runs his own company, Wild Oak Capital, has a really strong knack for coaching people through that transition. Former history as an engineer, tremendous engineer, and now leads individuals who are also interested in investing. Eric, that's not what we're here to talk about today, though. Those things all powered this vision that I remember talking to you about here in Scottsdale not too long ago. You were like, I want to leave the States. I want to take my kids to go live somewhere else. Like, let's start with this. Where did that idea come from?
All right. Well, first of all, thanks for having me here. I'm like super honored to be here. Like you're right. We've had a lot of touch points. We've crossed paths a lot of times. So I'm very happy to be here. I don't know, man. I think like my wife and I are pretty adventurous. This is a whole other story for a whole other day, but we actually drove a camper, like a small 82 Toyota camper from Colorado to the bottom of Patagonia. And it took a year. So that was like this journey we did before our kids. Yeah, that's like I said, whole other story. That was wonderful, but kind of an adventure in itself. I mean, we learned a lot, and we just were like, this is amazing. Travel is cool, learn some Spanish, blah, blah, blah. Then we had kids, and like lots of people, you kind of settle down, so to speak. But we're like pushing against that a little bit. Like, actually we do want to live abroad, and we do want to show our kids a different language and culture. And I love Colorado, but it's pretty monotone when it comes to diversity, especially like Southwest Colorado is pretty one tone. Which is fine. But on the other hand, like there's lots of world to see, there's lots of food to see, there's lots of languages to hear, like all kinds of stuff that we wanted to show our kids, and we love it too. So the idea was just like, hey, our kids are fairly young. They're 5 and 8. They were 4 and 7 when we moved here. And I was like, could we take our kids abroad for a year or two? And what does that look like? Like that's where the idea came from. Because I was like, if we're going to do it, now seems like a good time, because before they get, like girlfriends and sports and all kinds of stuff that keep them way like honed in on where they are, they're young enough now where they would want to go, and they're so curious, and it's been a journey. So we can talk a lot about it, but the question was where did it come from? And it was just like this, what if we moved somewhere? Like that was kind of where it came from. I love
that. Yeah. I think a lot of vision comes from these like what if scenarios. And it sounds like you two had a great discussion about the logistics and the pathway there. So if you're tuned in, what I want you to pay attention to as we have this conversation is your own guidance system for your vision. If you've had a what if, maybe you've wanted to live out of the country, maybe you've wanted to take your business remote, maybe you've wanted to go through some kind of change. And as I ask Eric all these questions, see if you can find the line of best fit for you, because Eric's done what I think is a really hard visionary adjustment. So let's dig into that a little bit. You had this conversation, you're like, okay, let's do it. And something changes when you go from what if to now we're going to do this.
Totally. Yeah.
As soon as you made that commitment, what shifted?
Yeah. I mean, I think first there's a lot of steps between like what if and then we're going. Right. I think the what if draws out for longer than you want to believe, because you're like, what if we do that? And then you're like, well, where do we live? And what part of the world? And do we want to live near the beach? Do we want to live near the mountains? Like there's just so many like variables. So for us, it was kind of this funnel, you could say. Like it was like, okay, we want to be in a Spanish speaking part of the world. So that narrows it down not that far, actually. Like all of South America, all of Central America, like. and let's say Spain, and then there are some islands and territories. But let's just say like, okay, south of the United States plus Spain. And then we're like, cool, all right, we've been to most of those countries. We like most of those countries south of us. I'd been to Spain a few times. It's wonderful. And then we're like, okay, what's the pros and cons, blah, blah, blah. So we kind of went back and forth. We thought about Mexico quite a bit because we love the food, we love the people, we love the beach, blah, blah, blah. One thing that came up was education. And so we're like, okay, we want to really, really continue this good education our kids have felt. And in some countries, unfortunately, like Mexico, they have a lack of education that's really solid. So our kids would have gone to school like 4 hours a day. It was sort of the part of the world we want to live in. And I am generalizing, but this is fairly true. Spain, we found the education, even in public schools, to be a fairly high standard. And then we started looking at private schools and they're super high standards. So we're like, okay, and we could live in Europe. So we want our Spanish speaking thing. We can be in Europe and we can travel a ton of countries really quickly. So that became the like new point. It was like, okay, cool. We've chosen Spain. And then you start to narrow down from there. And funny things come out as you narrow, but I'll ask you your question if you want.
Well, I love this process and getting vocal on it. What I see happen over and over when people talk about vision is it doesn't tunnel, it doesn't funnel, it gets wider. And it sounds, if I were to deduce what you did into a small formula, you just started removing things more and more until you were only left with a couple of possibilities. And then you can really assess the choice. But when it's really wide, it becomes almost impossible. It's like going to a Baskin Robbins and saying like, I'm going to buy 17 gallons of an ice cream. And all of a sudden you don't have a way to make a choice. So you assessed more and more criteria into this formula and got to a place where you could then make a final decision between a couple variables.
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, that's exactly it. You're basically removing things out of the way. So for us, it was like the removal of a large chunk of the world by saying Spanish speaking, then the removal of, okay, we want to be in Europe. So then it's basically like, okay, Spain. Now it's honestly still a ginormous choice because there's so many cultures and languages even within this country. So we're like, okay, what are the things we want? One thing was I've never lived near a beach. So I was like, all right, let's a beach. So then we're like, sweet, we have the coasts. So now we're pretty close. And then it was like, then it became weather based. Southern Spain, super hot. It's like Scottsdale. I mean, I know you love Scottsdale, but dude, in the summer it's brutal. It's super hot. So that's like it is here. And I was like, nah, we don't want to be there. So we're kind of in northern Spain. And then it turns out northern Spain, like Basque Country, is super rainy. And we're like, we don't want that either. So we kind of landed on this like Costa Brava, Costa del Sol sort of area near Barcelona. And then you can start to really narrow it down. And then we had a couple of friends kind of give us some tips on some towns and stuff. And then we got to looking at schools, and then you're really close. You know, you're in a series of probably 5 or 6 towns. And so you're exactly right. You're just like cut out. And then we're here and we're like, oh, that sounds like most of the things we're looking for.
There's so much wisdom in this. It sounds like you also waited to ask for feedback, insight, and advice until you got pretty far down that funnel, which I think is also important because it needed to be your trip, not somebody else's trip.
That does happen, right? Like if you mention to people like, hey, we're thinking about moving abroad, you know, the one thing that drives me nuts is like, oh, so scary, so dangerous. Like, okay, throw that out, right? The other thing is you have to like be willing to like field, like, am I allowed to cuss on this?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Bring it.
Okay. I know you to be not afraid of that, so I wanted to make sure. But like, just bullshit. Like people tell you stuff that they don't know. It's like, you know, so there's just their fear on you. So you have to have the wisdom to be like, I'm not judging you for that fear, but that's not going to settle on me. Like I just not going to have that. So, yeah, man, that was kind of like, you nailed it. Like that was a process of just like getting rid of that stuff. And then once we found the zone, then we're like, okay, we're moving to this part of the world. Who do I know that knows anything or has lived near this part of the world? Then the information is super helpful. Because if you're like, we're going to move to a Latin country, like you would get wildly different opinions from everyone, you know? And then you also have to be like with kids, right? Like that's a huge, huge thing, right? Like I traveled to Barcelona when I was 20. It looks a whole lot different than it does now. Like not the city, but just my experience, you know? Like, so you have to kind of qualify the question. Like, by the way, I also have kids and we want to live here. We're not just partying, you know, which, you know, so anyways, so I think you're right. Like narrowing it down, was that sort of a loose how it went, and then there's more to it, of course.
Yeah. The piece that I hear in the description, you got this funnel. As you get narrower, then you can start to get feedback. But if you ask for feedback too early, it really skews your process. So I can appreciate how much diligence you did there. And as you march towards a finality of your location, you're coming to this place of, okay, now the vision is being committed to. Was there fear? Did you grapple with hesitation just internally as you're doing this? Like, you got your partner, you got your family going with you, so you can kind of ride out like, I'm not alone. But I have to imagine there were some fears about this kind of commitment.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, for me, honestly, the biggest fear, and will be super honest on this show, dude. I'll be like totally open book, but the biggest fear was money. The biggest fear was like, what if my businesses fail because I'm not there? Like, or I'm not, I don't know, the time zone's different or whatever. So that was my biggest fear, was money. It was like, what if I move my family over there? And well, actually, maybe this is the second biggest fear. My first biggest fear is that my kids would hate it, or like my wife would hate it. Like if I hate it, that would suck, but like I could suffer if everyone else loved it. But if my wife or my kids hated it, we also had this side agreement. We're like, we're willing to pull the plug. If we get here and we're like 2 months in and we're like, this truly sucks, we're not just like experiencing culture shock, we really don't like it. We had the agreement like, this isn't a forever decision. If we don't like it, we're willing to move back. So that fear was removed fairly early. That was my biggest fear. Second biggest fear for me personally was money. Now my wife's fear, she's more in the line of like fear of the unknown. Like, what if our kids' teachers aren't that great, or like what if we make no friends? Like, we also had this fear of being extremely lonely, right? Because like our Spanish is okay, but not like make best friends very quickly kind of language, you know? So that was another fear, is like just be lonely. Yeah. So the answer to the question, dude, so many fears. And then you also fear like, what if I make a giant mistake? Like, we rent our house out for a year. We come here, we don't like it. We're homeless at home. Like, we'd have to go live in our camper. I don't know. Like, you can figure it out. But you know, my biggest fears were those like kind of taking care of my family. 'Cause it's a lot of people say I'd love to move abroad, but then you start thinking about the steps, and we'll probably get into that too. But like, the visa process, and renting out your house and moving your stuff out and put it in storage, and buying a car here and finding rental here, and there's just a lot of steps that you don't. I mean, I guess you would think about, but it's so. One thing my wife said at one point was, she's like, "I'm just so overwhelmed that I don't even know where to start." Like, that's kind of how I think in the vision of this podcast. That's true of a lot of visions too. Like, that's true of a big vision. Like, I love this idea. I don't know where to start. There's so many steps to do. So I told my wife, I'm like, that's cool. Like, there's a lot of steps and there's a lot of things, but it's like take one bite at a time. Like the elephant thing. You just take one bite at a time, and eventually we'll get all the steps done, as so long as we have them at least somewhat written out. And so that's where we started. Written out generally.
So, okay, we're walking towards a commitment. Anytime you make a commitment to a vision, there's going to be fears, there's going to be unknowns. I can very distinctly remember my move out to Scottsdale, and I wasn't changing countries. And even that comes with its own set of unknowns and similar fears. Even in the States, you can feel connected but alone, even if you share the same language. So I get all of that. I'm interested to know how this transition started and unfolded. We can maybe skip the move, but you land there.
Okay.
And now I want to hear a little bit about what you expected when you got there, and then the actual of what you got there. And were they different? Because we tend to look at, when we commit to vision, when we commit to something big, all these things have to change. And we're like, okay, I'm going to go there, and I'm a worst case scenario kind of thinker. I'm scenario casting all these different like strategies to navigate it. But you're moving across the world. And I'm sure that you were thinking, especially with kids, you're probably thinking about all the things that could go wrong and could go right. So what was the gap between what you thought was going to happen when you arrived and what was real?
I think the reality of I think the reality of being lonely was was not a reality. So probably the biggest thing that was different than I thought was we're incredibly social here. I mean, we like Spanish people just in generally very welcoming. And so we made friends fairly quickly. And like, we're probably more social here than we were at home. And that was like, just, I don't know why. It's just that we're like us, our family on the beach in our apartment. Like we take them to school, come back. Like I envisioned this like incredible amount of us time. And that was just almost the exact opposite. Like we have an enormous amount of friends that are just super generous people that we've met. And so I think that was one big difference. Um, it's hard to imagine. Now we've been here a year, so it's a little bit hard to imagine for me to be like, what was that much different? I also thought that like we'd integrate a little bit more into certain cultural things. Like Spanish people eat dinner at like 9 and 10 p.m. And I was like, oh yeah, we'll totally settle into that. I'm like, nope. Like we still kind of eat on American time zones. Like the restaurants here don't open till 8 p.m. We're there at the step at like 7:59. I'm like, I have no shame, dude. Like our kids need to go to bed. So like certain things like that. I mean, it's just a different experience because I just thought you think of something one way and the reality is different, right? And it's hard to pinpoint all those things, but like like this town, I envision it kind of like a sleepy family town, and it definitely is. But Catalans love to party, and so it's like festival heavy, and there's so many festivals, and it's super cool. But we still feel a little lost at times. We're like, well, now what are we celebrating? Like today's is San Juan. It's like a Catalan festival. You'll probably hear some fireworks in the background. Like it's like every other week. So I had this envision of like this sleepy town, but in reality, we're out all the time. Like we're out enjoying the beach and the festivals and stuff. So I don't know if that answers your question. There was nothing like dramatically different other than the social life, which I thought would be somewhat lonely or not at all.
Amazing. Amazing. So you got to take the leap of faith and then you landed on the other side. Turns out great.
Yeah. Yeah. Lucky.
When I think about taking a personal vision and bringing it to life, I'd say 99% of people listening can be like, okay, there's going to be a lot of personal change. What I'm really interested in though is how this even the commitment started to formulate how you run your business different and how you made some personal changes inside of either the way you operated, the way you made money, the way you structured, the way you hired. Like the business probably transformed with you as you went.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think that was my biggest fear. So like some transitions needed to happen for sure. So like my septic company, I do septic design in Colorado, and like people make fun of me, but it's my favorite business. Like I just love designing septics. It's super weird. But it was basically like a one person show. Like I would drive to the property, look at it, meet the homeowner, do the design. And it's one of those things that doesn't take very long. It really doesn't. Like a septic design in total is not a big time commitment. But the time to get there, talk to the person, see the property, blah, blah, blah. Like obviously I can't do that in person. So I needed to hire someone. So I did hire someone, and he was pretty good. I trained him, and then I left. And then that didn't work out. And this was actually one of the bigger struggles. I was like, oh my gosh, how do I hire someone without being there to sort of train them? And so that was a huge learning lesson for me. I've hired someone else. She's amazing. She's worked out really well. She's she's excited. It was hard to train her. But the one thing I wanted to do was just like shift away from being the person on site. And what's interesting now is like, even when I go home, I'm probably still going to pay her to do that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Why would you go back?
Yeah. Like it's wonderful. She does a good job on site. People like her, like all this stuff. Like, but I had this vision in my head, and it was a lie, that I needed to be there, and they wanted to see my face, and like they wanted to talk to the engineer. You know, it's like in reality, people don't care. Like they want to know that it's being designed by a professional. But like if someone else comes because she's a geologist and shows up and she's friendly, and they're like, okay, well, yeah, people just don't care. And so the same goes for my real estate business. Like in multifamily, we only buy in Oklahoma and Arkansas, and then sometimes in Texas, but it's Southern based. So I was thinking like these kind of old school kind of mom and pop Southern owners might be like, oh, I'm not going to sell to some guy in Spain. Like that's totally wrong. And all the brokers are like, oh, it's so cool you live in Spain, man. Like, oh, that's, like everyone's actually oddly more excited to work with you. Maybe not more, but just they don't care where you live. They're just like, cool. I used to buy from Colorado. Now I'm buying from Spain. it was remote. So I just had this lie that was probably the biggest lie I was telling myself, that I needed to be there, or like, even sometimes I was thinking like, what if I just don't mention to this broker that I'm in Spain? But that's garbage, man. Like, that's not who I am. So anyway, there was like a couple of things I could point out. Hired an asset manager. She's outstanding for our multifamily stuff. She's just more detailed, and it was an like, it was sort of a side effect of moving, because I really wanted to spend more of my time with my kids here, and so I was trying to reduce the amount of time in all of my businesses, which is an interesting practice, because why didn't I do that before? Like, all of these things, I'm like, dude, this is like, why did I not do this while I lived in
You're like
Colorado? This is
answering
like,
all the questions that
yeah,
ahead
yeah.
of time. Yeah. Why? Yeah.
So,
Why wait?
oh yeah. So now, like Bonnie, she's amazing. So she does the asset management for us. So that was like a shift that happened again, where I was like, I want to work less, so I need to bring in someone else that's better at that than me. It's like so obvious, but if you're listening and you want to work less, find someone better than you at the things you
Better
don't
than
like
you.
doing and freaking hire them. Like, that's the best advice I can possibly give.
I'm going to lean into that
Okay.
because that's a really important theme, and I want to dig on that. This vision of being overseas catalyzed all this change. There were a lot of fears and stories around it, but it catalyzed all this change in your business. Sounds like made the business way better.
Way better.
And you navigated that, right? Some of those things you would not have maybe predicted you would need to learn or need to evolve into or need to hire with or decipher. But there's no way you could have planned and implemented those changes until you made this commitment. So if
Totally agree.
someone
Yeah.
is listening and they're like, dude, I have this vision of blank, right? Move for anything from moving cities to changing
Just
from a
working less.
remote
It could just be
operation.
like, I want to work less. Yeah. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
like, I want to change operation of my company.
Any kind of vision. What would you tell them now, having gone through it from like the commitment to the changes? What advice would you give them?
I think one thing that I tell people a lot is like, this comes with generosity is when I hear it the most. When people talk about like, I'll give when, or I'll work less when, I'm always like, what are you talking about? Especially in the context of like a Go Abundance group. I'm like, if you're in this group, you have money to give. Like, you can definitely give right now. Like, you can pull out $100 bill out of your wallet and give it to someone else, and you won't even it won't affect you. And I'm not trying to be a jerk. I mean, it just means like, the you'll do X when is a lot of times garbage. And I just admit I was like totally guilty of that. I was like, oh well, I don't want to work as much when I'm in Spain. I'm like, well, did I really want to work that much? Like, no
Now?
matter
Yeah. Do I
where,
want
like,
to do that now?
so wherever your goal is or whatever your vision is, why wait? There's definitely no reason to wait. Generosity is like this. If you don't have money to give, because I've totally been there, give your time. Like, find the thing that drives you, that makes you feel good. Like for me as kids, like I was on the board of a boys and girls club. Super proud of that. I don't want to be with kids all day, like, but I do want to give back to kids. So I was able to use my business experience and help the club raise money, blah blah blah. But there was a long time where I just waited. I'm like, dude, what am I doing? I have time. Like, I can totally give. I have, you know. So if you have a goal or a vision, go for it. Like, there's no reason to wait. And it's like, the only way to go is to go. The only way to give is to give. And then you'll see how awesome it is, and you'll want to do more of it.
Yeah. I have certainly been here. Maybe you have too, where I was waiting to make the commitment. And this interesting thing happens when you don't commit to it, right? You evaluate, you assess, your fear goes up, your uncertainty goes up, and you just kind of end up dancing with this infinite checklist of adaptations to maybe make the commitment. And I find that everything changes as soon as you make the commitment. When you say, I'm
Totally
going
agree.
to Spain, click, 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 things change. When you say, I'm going to convert my business into a fully remote automated business, click, 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 click. I'm going to sign up for this coaching program, click, 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 click. And until you make the commitment, there's going to be immediate outs that you find. And I just find my own fear and hesitation goes way up until I'm like, I'm all in. And once I'm all in,
100%.
then I figure it out.
Then the last thing you said is, in my opinion, the most important. You will figure it out on the way. So people, and the other thing I think that we see a lot is like they won't commit because they don't have it all figured out. So like, I have this idea, like I want to move to Spain. Let's just say I want to move abroad. Let's just use my example. But I don't know the visa process looks like, and I don't know like how do I like, like, dude, you freaking figure it out if you want to do it, right? Like, or if you want to sign up for a coach. Like if you want Aaron to be your coach, honestly, I'm not just saying this, fucking amazing coach, dude. Like if you're thinking about it, sign up. Just go, right? Like if you have that and you'll figure it out the rest of the way as you go. It's just giving two examples. Or like you want to fully automate your business, you don't know how to do it, you're scared, commit and go. And then you'll figure that stuff out as you go. Otherwise you'll never figure it out because you never commit, you know?
Mm. Amen. So let's jump into this other side of things. So you bring in this person that's better than you. If I had to label, we've got a framework that we talk people through on what it means to lead a business. And of all the CEOs I work with, anytime somebody wants to level up, which is really tied to vision, there are 4 fears. And I'll go backwards. There's a fear of like catastrophic loss. There's a fear of uncertainty. There's a fear of rejection. And then to this point of about finding someone better than you, there's a fear of inferiority. And to manage someone that's better than you takes a different lens. I'd love to hear your take on what that journey has been like to manage someone that like from a skill perspective can outgame you.
Yeah, that is a challenge. That's a set your ego aside moment, right?
Yes.
Because you build this thing, like in this case, I built Wild Oak Capital, and I say me, it's been a team effort from the very beginning, but it's, my partner Shane and I have sort of built this thing. I started it. He was my first partner. Like I give all the credit to the people around me but I say me in the sense that it felt like mine, meaning like I am the CEO and I kind of founded it, created the name, the brand, blah, 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 off the ground. Right. And then Shane had this incredible skill set that was sort of different than mine. Right. And so like that was kind of good to go from the beginning because he was like, let's say the COO and I was the CEO, just like put some labels on it. And there was never that rub because we were both pretty talented in that lane. As soon as we were like, okay, we need an asset manager to step in and kind of take over some of the stuff I was doing, then she's badass. I'm like, yeah, to your point, like you kind of just have to be like, oh, that idea is way better. And oh, like your organization is way better. But, but at the same time, like if I disagree, then you have to have that balance of, okay, first of all, you have to let go of control. And then second of all, like ultimately it's hard to be like really lead someone, but then like never check or like never like, I don't know how to say this, but you still need to be a leader to this person, even if they're better than you, at that one thing. Right. So that's kind of been the dance I have to learn and will continue to learn. Her name is Bonnie. She's just incredible. She just has better ideas. She's better organized, like certain things she's just good at. So that's a hard thing to manage because you're not training someone. You're not like training them in that skill. You're just learning how to like lead them in the bigger picture, I think. So I found my role to be more of a visionary role. And we talked about this actually when you're on my mastermind. Like, Brittany's like that with the mastermind. Like she's the implementer. So like she's the integrator, so to speak. Like visionary integrator, that's kind of the new role I've stepped in Wild Oak Capital, at least the way I'm looking at it. Like Shane and Bonnie are now that's kind of 2 dual integrators and I'm more of a visionary. So I'm like, okay, what's the next level? What's the thing I need to look, further for, I guess?
To let go of control is not easy. Set your ego down is not easy. I find that it's also incredibly fulfilling once you kind of navigate the middle gap of like, well, this person is good. In some ways, would you say that you are responsible for like the steering of this person in some sense? How do you think of like control now?
Yeah, I think like one thing that is like really challenging for me is when she does it a different way than I would. Like that's like the biggest challenge of all. Because I'm like, that's good, but that's not how I would do it. And then all of a sudden I have to be like, but it kind of works, like it doesn't really matter. So, I mean, I don't know that I really have a great answer for this. I mean, I'm about a year into this, maybe a little more, 18 months into this kind of new role with somebody, giving up the things that I used to do and kind of allowing space. And I think that's the other thing too, is like, you also can't just like, like micromanage and be like, that's the whole reason you hired that person is to not do that. Right. So I think for me, the challenge I find is like if she's doing something different than I would, again, it's probably more of an ego than anything else. Just to allow like, all right, that isn't what I would have done, but there's no harm in it either, and it's working. Let's roll with it. Kind of, you know what I mean? Like, and then I think the other thing too is to find a new identity. Like I was saying, I think the visionary role sort of fits this new place that I've found myself in, so that I can lead from a bigger picture and see further in the future. Hopefully, that's kind of the new role I see.
Why do you think visionaries micromanage? Like the tendency that I see is that visionaries micromanage. Why do you think that is?
I think it's because it's their vision, right? Like I think it's because it's their idea. And I'm again generalizing. Like that's not always true, but if you have this idea and then it sways away from what you thought it would be, maybe I'm just guessing. Then all of a sudden you're like, no, let's not do it that way, or let's make or maybe another thing is like a lot of times the visionaries start out doing the idea, so they have this idea of a business and it's just them, so they're doing it. It's so normal because you don't have any money, so you start out and you're doing it this one way, and then you hire someone, they do it some other way, and you don't realize that maybe that way is better, but maybe it takes longer to implement or whatever, right? Like AI is like this. Like AI is going to be so amazing, man, so amazing. But if you're fighting that implementation, it's just going to take you longer to get there. So that's like the analogy I would give of like if you're not wanting to use AI because your current system works, I understand that thinking. But you gotta kind of get. It's like the same thing as like when the internet came along. It's like, well, mail works fine. They get it tomorrow.
That's a good analogy. Yeah.
But email is a whole lot faster, right? If you're not freaking buying a computer and learning how to do email, that's the way AI is going to be. I think like it's going to be like, all right, yes, your current system works. Yes, you can build a spreadsheet. You can build a spreadsheet with all your investors on there, or you can ask AI to do it, and it takes in like 4 seconds. So you don't have to ever do that again. Like that's just one example. So I think the question you asked is why do visionaries micromanage? I think it's probably just because things are changing either away from the vision they had or the way that they did it to start, and it's probably a little bit of a rub. I also think that like visionaries tend to want to sometimes, again, we say glory, like ego a lot. They kind of want a little bit of glory. They want to like know that they did it. But I think I'm guessing. I don't really have a lot of that myself. Like I don't think. But at the same time, like I do want Wild Oak to run in a way that I want it to run, and also represent my values and me as a person. So there are some things I would just never allow. Right? Like we're never going to cheat. We're never going to lie. We're never like not be transparent to investors. Like those things. So in that sense, I probably would micromanage in some ways.
Yeah. The passion for this particular division, I have found lies in my experience coaching kids. When you're coaching kids, you have a natural awareness to like, I want them to be better than I am or was, or at least I would hope so. And with adults, I don't know that that's always true because there is this sort of egoic, like I'm the leader. And when you invert leadership to say like they're amazing and I'm just supporting, it can really twist the identity backwards into like,
Oh, totally.
what value do I have? And do you guys even need me? And
Yes, dude, that's so true.
here's the comedy, right? If I have surveyed 100 business owners that had started their own company and grown it, and I said, hey, would you like to get out of your business? They would probably all out of 100 say like, yes, it's still running, but it doesn't need you day to day. And then if I ask the second question, would you struggle if your business didn't need you? They would probably all lie and say no.
That's going to say that's the lie, though, right?
That's the lie.
Like, yeah, because if you sort of pull yourself out of a business, then you're like, what purpose do I serve? Like,
yeah. And
yeah,
what do I do?
yeah. Like, well, this business doesn't need me. Like, you're kind of looking around like, am I going to get cut out? I think that's like a fear too, right? Like, will the business sort of like move on without you?
There's a mutiny.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, maybe, right? Like, I don't think, but it's possible. I think maybe there's some fear there too, but I don't know that I've stepped far enough out of any of my businesses to say that, but I think there is a possibility of fear of if you pull yourself as far out as you possibly can, it's running by itself. Now, what's the purpose you serve? That's probably a fear there.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this, this thing that I've been running into, this wall of, I want to be out of the business. And I can't even think of it here, but I love what I do and I love what we do. And so it has forced a new idea of scale. And the end game, I think for all of us, is like, can we make money and do the things that we love? That's the game. So if you need to be out of your business to go do what you love, then we got to figure out how to get you out of the business. If you don't like doing septic stuff and you're making great money, we got to find a way to get you out of the septic business, make sure everything runs and you get paid so you can go do what you love. Or let's figure out how to get paid doing what you love.
Yeah, so that's the thing about you, man. Like if you love what you're doing, then you don't necessarily want to work yourself fully out of the business. Now, you may not want to do sales calls anymore. You may not want to do the books. You may not want to like do, client follow-up, blah, 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 like all the stuff, right? But you may want to be the only, you may want to click on the Zoom or be there in person and coach that person because that's what you love doing. But all the other stuff, like get it out, right? Like that's what comes to mind. But you just nailed it, is the difference between you and a lot of people is you love doing it. Like you talk to owner of a software engineering company, they don't like doing the work anymore. So then their work is like exactly what you said, get out of that business altogether. Hopefully it can run by itself or sell it, right? An exit strategy or something, go do what it is that you do love. So I think those are two very different like business things,
Definitely. So that brings me to a question. You've been able to build this thing where you can essentially be where you want to be. It can operate regardless of where you are locationally. You're starting to learn and nurture someone that can really shape this without needing to be super far in the weeds. Is this starting to open up a whole next level, a new chapter for you that is starting to excite you?
What it's done is open me up to new, different things that, yes. So let me give an example. Like, I used to do like more like civil engineering. So we used to do like subdivision type work, and I used to do it for clients, and certain ones had to they were like the gyms. They're like, oh, that's a very good idea, and that's a very profitable subdivision. And I just never did it for myself because I never had the time, never really thought to. So like, I'm literally closing on my first personal subdivision next week because my time had opened up and I was like, ooh, I found this lot that I've been looking at forever. They're finally ready to sell. I got to jump. Whereas a year ago, I'd have been like, I really don't have time for that subdivision. I got too much crap going. So it was more like opening up new ideas because I think like a lot of probably CEO type people you talk to, I'm not really going to sit on the beach. Like when I have more time, I just find myself with new ideas and then I have the excitement to implement them. So that's just one idea. Like I do some coaching and I have a mastermind, as you know, you were on it. That's become more fun for me because I'm putting more effort and more, and not that it wasn't fun before, but it's now I'm like, what's next there? What's the best possible guests I can bring in? I'm spending more time on those, like, making the client experience as best as I possibly can. I don't think it was bad before, like I said, but it's just going to get better and better and better. So to answer the question, yeah, I don't think like Wild Oak Capital, I have this trajectory that I think it's on a really good one. For me, it's more like what's the next other different idea while that one continues to kind of cruise on hopefully the trajectory we have pathed out, so to speak. So more of like a sidestep a bit for me personally.
Now that you've made this move, would moving be easier? Do you think if you did it again, it'd be easier?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, without question, because now you know all the, the fears that were real and the fears that were not real. Like, yeah. And that's, I mean, my wife probably like once a week, she's like, you want to move to Italy next? Or she's like, are we here long term? Because we really committed to 1 year.
Coming back, dude.
I know. So like we were here for 1 year, got through the school year. Our kids' last day of school is yesterday. They have a later school year. They start in September, and then we're recording this on the 23rd of June. But, and now we're like, okay, let's do another year. Like, no question, we're going to be here another year. I know. So we're like, let's do it. So we have a 3-year visa with no paperwork required. So we have 3 years of a no-brainer if we want to stay. Then from there, we have sort of like a potential path to European citizenship through Marie's family. So we're like, okay, well, we could potentially live anywhere in Europe. So like, now what? I don't know. That now, Aaron. Now the fear is, are we doing a disservice to our children by not raising them in the U.S. and knowing the things that we knew, or are we doing them a service by they're probably going to be not totally bilingual, but close. They'll know totally different cultures. They'll know how to travel very well. I mean, there's just so many things that you're constantly doing this dance of what's the right thing for us and what's the right thing for our kids. And so to answer the question, yeah, moving would be way easier. The challenge then comes down to what's the most right thing that we can do for our family.
It's cool that you can optimize, which comes down to what are you optimizing for, which sounds like you're pretty dialed into.
Yeah, I mean, some of it's unknown, right? So like from my perspective, I'm like, well, we want our kids to like know American cultural things and, play the sports and I'm a huge team sport person, and I don't know, you start thinking of the things that you have and be around grandparents, of course, right? My cousins and just stuff like that. So you're like, is that more valuable than, having like here their school that each are in class with 20 different nations. Like they're surrounded by the world because it's an international school. So like, that's really, really cool to me. But is that like that's the dance? And that's not to say that isn't true for everyone who hasn't moved, right? Because even if you've never moved, you're like, what schools are right for our kids? What, teachers are right for our kids? What, so you're always doing this as a parent. And then you just start having to ask the question of then location based, what's the best for them, or us too.
What are some of the growth plates that you've had to commit to because of this vision of living abroad, and now considering living abroad? Like, are you going to learn like every language everywhere you go? Like, that's a personal commitment. That's cool. That's come from this. But what are some other like growth plates for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're trying very hard to get very good at Spanish. So that's huge. And if we moved to Italy, I would do the same. Yeah. So I'd be like, if we're moving to Italy, then I would like switch over, and start learning Italian that day. I mean, if we're like, okay, make the commitment. That's kind of what we talked about early on. Is like the moment you commit is when I'm like, all right, well, now my Spanish tutor is sorry. Now I need an Italian tutor, like, so to answer the question, yeah, that would be one, language one for us. You don't have to learn the language to live there. I had a friend who lived in China for 2 years and he doesn't speak Chinese, and you kind of get by. He lived in Slovenia for 2 years after that. Same story. Like, you don't have to, but the more you can, the better it is. The better experience is going to be. Let's see. The other one would be like being willing to be uncomfortable. You don't know. You don't know. Like, one of the things that's a challenge about moving abroad is, let's just give a simple example. Like, your kids get sick. Like, when we first got here, they get put into school, and of course there's, kids and it's a new germs. So they're freaking sick. So then you're like, all right, where's the best pediatrician? And you go to a pediatrician and they're speaking Spanish, and you're like, I don't really know how to say pneumonia in Spanish, but you're just slightly uncomfortable because you're like, I don't know this person. I don't know this location. I don't know the medicine. Like, literally the pharmacist gives us a medicine. The first thing I do is like get on Google and like, what is this medicine? Because it's not the same. And of course it's like, this is an antibiotic. You're like, okay, cool. And then you're just slightly uncomfortable all the time. Or like early on, you go to the grocery store and you're like, this is just not the packaging, not the stuff you're used to seeing. Yeah. Totally fine, but it's just,
what is that fruit?
Yeah. Yes. 100%. Like, that looks poisonous to me. So I think, those are the kind of growth plates you get past is, where's a dentist? Where's a doctor? Where's a hospital? Where's a policeman? Are the police reliable? What's 911? It's 112 here for some reason. Don't ask me why, but you just like things like that. You kind of get used to being slightly uncomfortable or a little bit out of your element until you're not anymore. And that will just take time,
How has this personal commitment made you a better entrepreneur?
I think maybe a better business owner is easy to answer. A better entrepreneur. I mean, maybe what I just said was, being willing to be uncomfortable, because being an entrepreneur comes with that same stuff, right? Like, you're like, oh, I don't really know how to do taxes. I guess I better figure it out. Oh, I don't really know how to, like, I don't know how to hire. I don't know how to hire anybody. what does that take? I don't know how to market. I'm totally uncomfortable. I have this really good idea. Anyone would buy it, but I don't know how to tell people about it. Like that. You're just like that. So maybe a little bit of being willing to be uncomfortable probably makes me a better entrepreneur in the sense that like the fear that I have of something flopping is probably less than the fear I had of moving my kids overseas. So I'm like, okay, well, on the scale of relativity of fears, this one's fine. Let's give it a shot. If my mastermind flops, which I don't think it will, but if it does, I'll move on. Right. Like, and then you're on to the next thing. So it'd probably just be like the willingness to be slightly out of my element.
I'm also mindful that someone listening might have some of these commitments, but it's not quite as, maybe the vision that they have is not quite as grand as like, I want to move overseas. But in the process of just your business transition as you went overseas, it also sounds like you went from like, I'm doing everything to now I'm able to step back and be strategic and really occupy this visionary role. There's a lot of growth to stay in that space. And I find that if I look at just my experience working with CEOs and my own, when you first step out, there's this tendency to go back in and like you start tinkering with stuff or micromanaging, and you're just fucking everything up.
Especially if you're the really right person in the right seat, you're just messing it up.
Yeah, just stay out of the way, right? Stay out. But there's a lot of personal growth in that too, where I'd like to hear a little bit from you in your growth. Is how did you go from the doer to the thinker and navigate the stillness and the kind of slowing down that comes with that? Some of it might be aided by Europe, right? Because there's a different lifestyle there. Totally different parameters for like what success looks like in family and neighborhoods. But there still is a personal transition where you're not as like quote unquote active in the way that you might have been in the past. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I will say before I forget, the cultural difference is huge. I mean, people are way more chill here, and people kind of explain that to us, and that took some effort on my part. Like you don't get the bill ever. They never bring you the bill for lunch or dinner ever until you ask for it. And so that you could sit there for hours, and most Spanish people do. Like a lunch is like traditionally like 3 hours, and that's not a joke. So like, the first few times I'm sitting with friends, I'm like, where the hell is the bill? And like, why are we all still sitting here? I like blocked an hour in my calendar. Now I'm like, if someone asks me to lunch, you don't block an hour, you block a long time, and then you just like hope that you make it back in time. So I will say there are some cultural things that like have forced me to personally slow down in general, and that's really cool. In terms of the business, I think I'm less reactionary because to the point, like, you're right. Early on, like I would see like someone write an email, like either wrong or maybe not. Like I'll give a very real example. Like a lender was writing, we were buying a new property, and I was trying to let Bonnie like kind of run the process of lending because she'd never done it before. Like, cool, I got your back. It's super annoying and super challenging in multifamily. Lending is just a beast. So the lender, like kind of go back and forth, and sometimes she'd answer in a way where I was like, ooh, that's really not right. And my reaction would just be like jump in and CC and respond, and I'd be like, actually, that's a little bit wrong, blah, blah, blah. And I actually realized I was kind of undermining her. I was like, you know what? Like, I should just tell her on the side if it really is wrong, or allow her to figure it out. And you can't in this lending example because there's a lot of money and investors on the line. But there are other times when it's like, maybe it's wrong. Like another example would be like a website change or something. Like, I don't know. That doesn't really matter, but it's not really right or not the way that you want it. You got to just be like, I'm going to let her figure that one out and let them respond. So like the undermining thing, I think I was doing that sometimes really unintentionally. Like I would just like write the lender and be like, oh, actually like we want to do, this, blah, 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 blah. And rather than let Bonnie make the response after I had kind of coached her or something. That's just one example I could think of. Because you do, like, once you give up some control, you want to still hold control. Like we were saying, like you still, like you don't really give it up at
you can
first.
have it, but not really.
Yeah, like kind of fake out, And to her credit, she's taken it all gracefully because that's annoying too. I've been in that seat too, where my boss would give me some work to do and then be like, I did it wrong. Like, well, that sucks, So you have to kind of learn and grow. There's a couple examples I could think of.
Yeah, nice. I've had a couple different bosses over the years, and I remember one because she was really, really oppressive, right? That just not a good culture, not a good fit. A lot of like we and I was used at the wrong time. We we messed up, and like clearly I messed this up. Like I broke it. So I don't know why this is a we thing. And then it was like, I did great. Like, wait a minute, this was like a team thing, you know? And then I've had leaders, not bosses, leaders who were really good at lifting me up and allowing me to fail. And something that I think I am really glad that I learned through sports was this idea of failure, right? Because as the boss in a business, very different than like the coach of a soccer field. If we lose, it's okay. Like we might be upset, but it's a soccer tournament. It's not like $400,000 on the line. So I think I learned, where the stakes were and how to let things fail. But also, I think I learned to play the long game, and the long game is a really hard game to play because it has forced me to kind of regularly check my ego at the door and ask questions about like, hey, is this actually important? Is that website change really that important, or is this person sticking around more important?
Oh, dude, that's so good. That's so good. What you just said.
It sounds like you've really become like you've transformed into this leader where like tactically you can know the difference between leading and like being the boss.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always a work in progress, right? And you kind of like, I have some mentors that I've like watched, and like to your point, or like maybe not, maybe even they've touched my life, or maybe they led me or something, right? Where you're like, that was the way that's done, and if I can implement that, if I can like be that style, that's awesome. You just put it really, really well. Like put it into words what I think lots of us have thought. Like I've never thought that that person sticking around is more important than the website change, but that's absolutely true. And that is kind of the benchmark of what's important, right? Like
Yeah,
like
let's hope.
being right. Yeah, like an argument, for example. Sometimes like I'll just bring this like back personally again. Like when I argue with my wife, sometimes my only goal is to be right. But at the stakes of what? Then she's pissed, and I'm like, ooh, I technically won the argument, but like that was not a win. That's like a good example. Like in this case, like yeah, maybe I told her the right way to do lending, but I made her feel bad by the way I did it or something. It's just totally not worth it.
Well, let's do one more question because I'm learning a lot from this. The idea of going overseas scares me. The idea of living abroad scares me. It also is very exciting. And dude, I go to a foreign country for like 3 days, and I'm like, I'm going to learn the language. I'm going to be totally immersed. And there's a desire, I think, latent underneath all of these things for me to want to figure this out. And then I immediately get shut down by some of these roadblocks. Some may be real, related to my son. Some may not. But for anyone that's tuned in that is seeing this vision, there does have to be a huge commitment to make these things happen. Like that if you're moving like 3 blocks away to a new house, you got some commitments, maybe some financial ones, but something like this does require a big commitment. And you can't just like control Z it. You can't just undo it at the end of it, right? You can't unmove very easily. And part of what I'd be curious to know about this commitment level, you've created a whole new life and you had to leave one behind. And I think we talk pretty loudly about the epicness of the new life, but we don't talk about the grieving of the old life. So I just want to create a little bit of space because I think listeners need to also hear about the loss and the things that you did have to give up that aren't always fun, and they're not bad things to give up, right? It's easy to give up a bad thing, but it's hard to give up a good thing. But to get a great thing, you had to give up some good things too.
Oh, totally, man. That's an amazing question. I mean, I love your style of questions because it's just super, super, super good. The things you give up is the thing for me personally, because I'm an extrovert and I just love people. the people is what you give up. So I happen to be pretty good at staying in contact with old friends, but the reality is, dude, I had a couple of buddies I would go mountain biking with very regularly. And now I see them posting riding together on Strava and I'm like, oh, like I'm happy for them, but man, I miss it, you know? So like that's a very real example. Like I give up mountain biking with my buddies to go to live on a beach, right? With my family and hopefully find new riding buddies, which I have found a couple, but they're not the same. And we don't have the deep, deep, deep relationship we had. My parents lived fairly close to us. You give that up. You know, they came to visit us in the fall and they'll come again this fall, which I'm super pumped for, but you give it up. Like, and the time zone's weird. So you know, talk to my dad and I'm sleepy and, you know, he's like having lunch, you know, like it's not the same. So like I had a good relationship with my dad. We go to lunch, not probably once a month. And I mean, I have a good relationship with my mom too. We had this sort of special thing with my dad when I go to lunch with him and like, I had to give that up. Right. So there's things like that. For me, it's almost all personal. It's almost all people. The things like, you know, another thing would be like camping's weird in Europe. It's like a whole thing. Like you have to go to like campsites and there's just not like open camping like there's in the US. You know, you go to and pitch a tent and like so many wildernesses in the US, you know? So things like that you give up, which I love camping, but you can, again, there's a sort of a give and take. So I just a handful of things that came first to mind, but I will say for most people, you're giving up a relationship with somebody or some friends or some family that you hopefully can find different friends and new adventures and those things. But those are the most challenging for me, for sure.
Yeah, even moving across country, I can relate to all that.
Yeah, without question, man. You even move like 3 hours, you're going to give up your friends and certain things. It's just a reality.
Yeah. Well, I hope more people are invited to a quantum leap like you've gone through and recognize that there's two parts to that, right? There's the commitment piece. And then there's like the grieving of like this wasn't broken. It wasn't bad, but the next level requires this sacrifice that.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I think I like, well, if you don't mind one more thing on this. One thing I didn't realize was like when you become a parent, this happens to you too. You kind of have to grieve. Like a good friend of mine would say, you have to grieve your old life. And I was like, what are you talking about? That is super true. Like once you become a parent, you have a kid, your life has changed so dramatically that you have to give up the old selfishness and sort of grieve that. This is not on that same level, in my opinion, but it's kind of like that. Like if you're hearing this, it's kind of like, oh, that was a huge moment for me. I'm like, hey, you kind of do. You kind of have to give up your own life in certain ways. Like you don't have the freedom that you had before. Like you know, you just have someone that will forever be the thing that you love more than you ever thought you could, and it will always be in your brain, and you'll always like do things that you wouldn't do or wouldn't want to do. Like I didn't want to wake up at 6 o'clock for like the first 5 years of my son's life, but I did because he wakes up early and he wants to hang out. So you know, that's just one simple example. If someone's like looking for a more tangible way of thinking about it, it's kind of like that. Like it's a big enough shift that you have to like grieve your old life a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that shift. I'm lucky to help people make that shift and I find a lot of joy in it.
Hmm.
The conversation though is usually about the gain and all these epic things you're going to get when you step out of your business and you get to run your life from this lens of freedom and abundance and you get to change and morph and become a leader. And I don't think we give enough credence to the grief of that. And even when it's good, the same grief happens when you first transition into owning your own business, right? Like I remember grieving the responsibility lessness, right? Like
100%, dude. I think everyone grieves that. Like, oh my God, I'm still thinking about my business at 9 p.m. and I don't want to, but I am. Or I'm answering the email at 11 because there's no one else to answer it. You know? Yes. Like I think everyone grieves the punch the clock, even though it's like the thing you want to get out of most. But yeah, I totally feel you. But you're right. I mean, you don't put enough weight to that. So great point.
Well, my hope, if you're listening, is that this conversation helps you think about your vision a little bit differently. This idea of moving abroad and the commitment that Eric's talking about really cascades down and the idea of funneling your vision and then asking for advice, I think is one really solid takeaway. I think another one that Eric mentioned is, once you commit to it, then you can really start to figure some of these things out. You can't figure them out until you make the commitment. So I think that was another big takeaway for me. And third, that as you made the shift personally, it started to really ripple into your business. And you've had to adapt some new ways of leading, some new ways of hiring, some new ways of managing. And all of that came from, I want to take my family overseas. And business and personal being so interwoven, like it's really created a level up in all areas of your life. It's really awesome to see.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I hope that, if I serve one person on the show, they get one piece of advice from it, and it was worth it. But no, I love talking to you, Aaron. I mean, I always gain a lot from when we hang out, and I just love your style of questioning and everything. So it's an absolute honor to be on. So hopefully we helped somebody today.
I hope so too. Next time I plan a trip, I'm coming to Spain.
Yeah, you're close, man.
You could,
you're going to Portugal. You just like jump right over.
Yeah, it can't be that far, right? Like an easy jet.
Super easy, dude. Like $50, dude. Traveling in Europe is so cheap, so cheap.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you got a couple extra days, not a joke. Let's text after the show.
Yeah. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about your multifamily investing or your mastermind?
Multifamily is wildoakcapital.com. If anyone wants to email me, Eric at Wild Oak Capital. If you guys want to hear about investing in multifamily coaching, it's Eric Nelson Coaching. So ericnelsoncoaching.com. Got a mastermind. I do some one-on-one stuff. But yeah, I'd love to talk to anybody for sure.
Dude, I'm incredibly grateful for today. I have not, of all the interactions that I've had with you, I'm not seeing you this happy. Like, dude, you're glowing, man. It's so cool to see you living in your vision.
Yeah, I mean, I think Marie's aunt and uncle were here like last week visiting us, and they were like, "Man, you guys seem really content." I was like, "That's such a funny word, but it's true. I feel very like content." To your point, like it could have gone the other way, but we're living here, and lots of things have gone in our favor, and it's just been a wonderful time. So appreciate the kind words. But we are, I think, pretty happy overall.
Dude, you're the poster child of what this is about, right? You're living in your vision, and it's not in the distance. It's in the day. I think that's really cool.
Had a lot of help along the way. Man, we had some very good long session and a whiteboard in Scottsdale that changed the path of a lot of things. So lots of people to thank, including yourself. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate that, man. If you love this episode, give us a like, give us a share, give us a review, or subscribe. You can do that on YouTube, or you can pay attention to Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify too. I thank you for being here. Eric, thanks so much. And we'll see you on the next episode. See you guys.